Welcome to Annie's English Studio, where every conversation opens a new door. I'm Annie. Let's get started. Ben, I am going to say something, and I need you to be honest with me.
That is a dangerous way to start a conversation.
It is already July.
I know. I saw the date on my phone this morning and said no out loud. To no one. Just to my phone.
I almost did the same thing this morning.
See, this is why we get along.
I feel like January was 2 weeks ago. Where did the rest of the year go?
I genuinely could not tell you. It happened while I was not paying attention, apparently.
That is exactly it, though. Time does not usually feel like it is disappearing. It feels normal, day by day. And then one morning you look up and half the year is gone.
It is strange because nothing about today feels different from 6 months ago. Same coffee, same walk to the studio, same you somehow managing to smile before I have finished waking up.
I will take that as a compliment.
But here's what got me thinking. Back in January, I had this whole list in my head. Things I wanted to do this year. And I have not looked at that list since. If I am remembering correctly, February.
Do you remember what was on it?
Vaguely. I think learning to cook something other than eggs was on there.
How is that going?
I have eaten a lot of eggs this year, Annie.
I respect the consistency, if nothing else.
What about you? Did January you have big plans for July, you?
I think so, but I do not remember them clearly either, which is a little embarrassing to admit out loud on a podcast to strangers.
We are among friends here.
Fair enough. I think this is really what today's conversation is about. Not the plans themselves, but what happens to them once real life gets in the way.
It is funny because if you had asked me in January whether I would still be talking about the same Meg situation in July, I would have laughed at you.
And yet, here we are, 6 months later, discussing eggs on a podcast.
I want it on record that I have gotten quite good at eggs. Scrambled, fried, a very respectable omelet on a good day.
That still counts as progress, even if it is not the progress you originally imagined.
I never thought about it that way. I have just been calling it a failure this whole time.
See, here is what is interesting to me. You did not do the big thing you pictured in January, but you did become better at something without really trying to.
Almost by accident.
Maybe that is worth remembering before we get too hard on ourselves about July.
Funny you should say that. I found something yesterday that made me think about this whole thing differently.
What did you find?
An old notebook from maybe 2 years ago, buried under some cables in a drawer.
A notebook of what?
Goals. Just a page near the front with a list I had written one night. Learn a new language, run a race, read more books instead of scrolling on my phone before bed.
How did it feel reading that again?
Strange. Some of it I had completely forgotten I even wanted. Like I was reading a letter from a different version of myself.
I love that idea, actually. A different version of you writing to the current version.
A very hopeful version. Slightly delusional about how much free time he was going to have.
I think we all have a notebook like that somewhere. Or a note on our phone. Or a list we made on January 1st and never opened again.
New Year's resolutions are the classic example, right? Everyone writes them with so much energy, and by February, half of them are already gone.
It is not even that people fail, necessarily. It is that the list just quietly disappears from your mind. You do not decide to give up on it. You just stop thinking about it.
Well put. It is not a dramatic failure, it is more like it fades out.
I think there is something a little sad and a little funny about it at the same time. We are so excited to imagine a future version of ourselves. And then the notebook goes in a drawer under some cables for 2 years.
Part of me wants to frame that page now, as a warning.
Or as proof that you have always been someone who wants to grow, even if the list gets forgotten for a while.
I like your version better.
It is a good thing one of us stays hopeful.
Lucky for me, it is you.
Can I tell you something a little embarrassing? I have 3 of those notebooks. Different years, different handwriting, same kind of list.
3? As in 3 separate notebooks?
3. I found them all in the same box once when I was moving apartments. I sat on the floor and read through all of them in one afternoon.
What was that like?
A little emotional, honestly. Some of the goals repeated across all 3 notebooks. The same dream, 3 years in a row, still unstarted.
That might be the most bittersweet thing you have told me all day.
Maybe that is one way to put it, but it also told me something. If a goal keeps showing up year after year, it is probably not a passing idea. It really matters to me.
So the forgetting is not really about the goal not mattering.
No, I do not think it is. I think it is about something else getting in the way, which might be what this whole episode is really about.
What do you mean, something else getting in the way?
Here is something I keep coming back to, though. Why is it always so easy to imagine? I can picture the version of my life where I finally speak another language fluently, or where I exercise every morning without fail in about 10 seconds. But starting takes forever.
Because imagining does not require anything from you. It costs nothing. You just sit there and picture it, and it feels good.
Good point. A goal, when it is still just in your head, feels perfect. Nothing has gone wrong yet.
Right. The moment you write it down, or worse, try it, it becomes real. And real things can fail.
So maybe the imagining is safe, and the beginning is the risky part.
That is the real difference between dreaming and deciding.
Can you explain that a little more? What do you mean by deciding?
For me, dreaming is passive. You are just picturing something nice. Deciding is active. It means you pick one specific goal and you commit to doing something toward it, even something small this week.
So a goal only becomes real once you decide, not just once you imagine it.
Exactly, and deciding is uncomfortable because now you might not achieve it. Now there is a chance you try and it does not work.
That is a brave way to put it. A lot of people are afraid of setting a goal, not because they are lazy, but because a goal creates the possibility of failing at something they truly care about.
Whereas if you never decide, you never fail. You just stay in the comfortable imaginary version forever.
Okay, so let me ask you this. When you think about progress, what does that look like day to day? Because I do not think progress is one big dramatic moment.
No, definitely not. Progress is usually small and a little boring. It is showing up on a random Tuesday when you do not feel like it.
I like that. Progress is boring. That should be on a poster somewhere.
Right next to a picture of eggs.
Your year in review.
Painfully accurate.
So, if we are talking about turning a dream into something real, I think it starts with picking one goal. Just one. Not the whole notebook page.
One goal you can work toward instead of 10 goals you will forget by February.
And then deciding today to do one small thing toward it. That is the part most people skip.
The deciding part.
The deciding part.
Can I disagree with you about something? Just slightly?
Always. Go ahead.
I do not think it is only about fear of failing. Sometimes we avoid deciding because once we decide, we cannot blame anything else anymore.
Say more about that.
If I never officially decide to learn to cook, then it is not really my fault that I still cannot cook. I can just say I have been busy or I never got around to it. But the moment I decide and try and it goes badly, that is on me.
So deciding takes away the excuse.
Right. It is almost more comfortable to stay undecided because undecided means you still get to imagine it going perfectly.
That is a sharp point. I think it might be even more true than what I said a minute ago.
We can agree that we disagree a little and both still be right.
A very diplomatic solution.
I try.
You are getting better at this the more we talk it through.
Can I admit something? Even when I decide, I still do not always start.
What gets in the way for you?
I think I am waiting to feel ready. Like there's going to be a morning where I wake up and suddenly feel motivated and everything will click into place.
How often does that morning happen?
Almost never really, maybe twice ever.
That is such a common trap. We treat motivation like it has to arrive first before we can begin. But from what I have noticed, motivation usually shows up after you start, not before.
That feels backwards, but I think you are right. Once I begin something, even a small piece of it, I usually want to keep going.
It is the beginning itself that creates the feeling, not the other way around.
So we are waiting for a feeling that is only going to appear once we stop waiting for it.
When you say it like that, it sounds almost funny.
It is a little funny. And a little annoying too, because it means there is no shortcut.
There is also the perfectionism piece, though. I know for me, sometimes I do not start because I am worried about doing it the wrong way.
Go on.
If I want to start something, like learning a new skill, part of me wants the first attempt to already be good. And obviously that is not realistic. The first attempt at anything is usually a little clumsy.
That is the real fear underneath it, I think. It is not really about the goal. It is about being seen doing something badly, even by yourself.
That is a vulnerable thing to admit, but it is true for a lot of people.
For me, though, not just people in general.
Fine. For you specifically, Ben, who has eaten eggs for 6 straight months instead of learning to cook.
A wound that did not need reopening. But here we are.
I love you.
I know.
But seriously, I think once we can admit the fear is not really about failing the goal, but about how we might feel while we are still bad at it, something shifts. It becomes less scary.
Because you expect the clumsy part instead of being surprised by it.
Precisely. The clumsy part is not a sign that something is wrong. It is just what starting looks like.
I remember the first time I tried to run, years ago. I lasted about 4 minutes before I had to stop and sit on a curb, completely out of breath, questioning every decision that led me there.
I can picture that so clearly. The dramatic collapse onto public furniture.
It was a low point. But looking back, that 4 minutes was still the beginning. It just did not feel like the beginning at the time. It felt like proof that I was not built for running.
And yet you kept going eventually.
Eventually, yes, very slowly and very badly for a long time.
That is such an important thing to hear. Because most people imagine the beginning is supposed to feel exciting, or at least competent, and instead it usually feels like sitting on a curb, out of breath, wondering what you were thinking.
If I had quit after that first curb moment, I would have believed running just was not for me, instead of realizing it was just what day one felt like.
That distinction feels important. Day one is not a verdict. It is just a starting point, and starting points are allowed to look messy.
That is what I needed someone to tell me back then, sitting on that curb. Not that I was doing well, because I was not, just that it was normal to be bad at something new.
Maybe that is the real skill, not avoiding the curb moment, but expecting it, so it does not convince you to quit.
That is a good note to end on. So where do we go from here?
Okay, so if the big dramatic version of starting is too intimidating, what works instead?
For me, it has been making the first step almost embarrassingly small.
What do you mean by that?
Instead of deciding I am going to learn to cook, which feels huge, I decide I am going to cook one new meal this week. One. Not a new habit overnight, just one meal.
That is so much more realistic than trying to change everything at once.
Right, and here's the thing. A goal like learn to cook never really ends. But a small step like cook one meal on Thursday that I can accomplish.
There is something satisfying about being able to say, I did that, even if it is small.
It builds a little bit of proof. Like, okay, I said I would do this small thing and I did it. That matters more than people think.
That is where a habit eventually comes from. I think, not from one big decision, but from repeating a small step enough times that it stops feeling like a decision at all.
So the goal is really just the direction. The habit is what carries you there.
I love that. The goal points the way. The habit does the walking.
Did you just come up with that right now?
I did just now. I am a little proud of it.
Write it down before you forget it. In a notebook, somewhere safe.
Not under any cables.
Learn from my mistakes. All of them, apparently.
For anyone listening who has a goal sitting in a drawer somewhere, I do not think the answer is some big motivational speech. I think it is picking one small, slightly boring step this week and doing it.
Something so small it feels almost silly not to do it.
That is it. Not perfect, not realistic in some huge, sweeping way. Just one small, honest step forward.
I think that also takes some pressure off the whole idea of a goal. It does not have to be this massive identity shift right away.
Right, you do not have to become a completely different person by Thursday.
You just have to make the eggs into something slightly more interesting than eggs.
A metaphor for the ages, truly.
I stand by it completely.
The notebook idea works the same way, I think. Instead of trying to complete the whole page at once, what if you just circled one line and gave yourself permission to only focus on that?
One line, not the whole notebook.
One line, the rest can wait. That is enough for tonight.
This conversation has gone somewhere I did not expect.
You know, when we started this conversation, I thought we were talking about goals. But I do not think that is really what this episode is about.
What do you think it is about?
I think it is about whether we still believe we can begin again.
That is a much bigger way to say it than, I forgot to learn a new language.
Maybe, but I think underneath the small, funny stories, That is the real question people are asking themselves. Not, how do I set a goal, but is it too late for me to follow through?
And what do you think? Is it too late?
No, I do not think it works like that. I think every single day is just another chance to decide again and take one small step,
Even in July,
especially in July. You do not need a new year to begin something. You just need today.
I think I am going to go find that notebook again tonight.
What are you going to do with it?
I do not know yet. Maybe just pick one thing off the list, the smallest one.
That sounds like a good place to start.
Maybe today really is enough.
I think so. Before we go, let us look back at a few words we used today.
I like this part. It is like finding the little trail we have already walked.
Our first word was goal.
A goal is simply something you want to achieve.
We also talked about progress.
Progress is usually much smaller than people expect. It is the little steps that keep moving you forward,
Then there was motivation.
which unfortunately does not always show up first.
No, sometimes you have to begin before the motivation arrives.
We also use the word habit.
A habit is something you do regularly, often without thinking about it very much.
We talked about keeping our first step realistic.
Because realistic goals are much easier to keep.
And finally, achieve and accomplish.
Both describe reaching something you set out to do. And sometimes, accomplishing one very small thing is exactly what helps you achieve a much bigger goal later.
Which feels like a pretty good summary of today's conversation.
My thoughts exactly.
What is one goal that has been waiting quietly in your notebook? Tell us in the comments. We would love to hear it.
This is Annie reminding you that English is not just a language, it is a door. And every episode, you open it a little wider. Until next time, keep opening doors.